The Sherman Act is over 100 years old. The Clayton Act is close to 100 years old. The FTC Act is close to 100 years old. There's not really many people, not many consumers today were around before when antitrust laws didn't exist. What would happen if there were no antitrust laws, and why do they exist?
Well, I've got an aunt down in Florida named Aunt Betty, and she's a wonderful lady. She probably was around about that time when the laws were passed. She was a great shopper. And there was a time about 10 years ago when a number of the large department stores began to merge. And she called me up one day. She said, I don't know what you do exactly, but it has something to do with this, I think. These department stores I shop in keep merging. If this keeps up, where am I going to shop? I said, Aunt Betty gets it. You know, she didn't understand what antitrust was or merger controls, but she understands that a consumer wants choices. That's where your leverage is as a buyer, or in almost anything, as a consumer of political information. You want choices. Doesn't have to be a million choices. In fact, that's probably overwhelming. But it's also, you don't want two or three. Your leverage is the ability to get up and walk away, or to switch your custom. So without antitrust, where would we be? Probably, as was the case, we would have cartels. A cartel takes away your choice because the people who apparently are competing are in fact colluding so that for that particular purpose, to derive you of the choice of prices. You would have monopolies, or at least you would have trusts, where the equivalent is what we call a public, like a bank holding company. You put everybody under one umbrella where there's central decision making, whether they're legally separate or not legally separate. It's a monopoly. Again, the purpose of the monopoly is to deprive the consumer of choice. And this doesn't only apply to end-use consumers like you and me when we go into the store, or Aunt Betty at the store. It applies to people up and down a supply chain, businesses. A small business or medium-sized business should have as much right to buy from or sell into a competitive market as the end-use consumer. Antitrust pretty much ignores this today, but that's what monopsony is about. So what I think we want is a society where there's competition at all different levels. It doesn't always have to be fragmented industries by any means. There are a lot of industries that should not be fragmented, and everybody, the economy is better off with a degree of concentration, but then it's how much concentration? Anyway, in the absence of antitrust, I think one of the things that we would see is a reduction in innovation. Why? Because if you're an investor in something new, you need to know that you're going to have a fair shot at success in the marketplace. And if you're going into a cartel or you're going against a monopoly and nobody is policing the market, you've got no chance. So if you've got no chance as the entrepreneur, where are your investors going to go? They look at that sort of stuff. So antitrust is actually a promoter of industrial growth and of a larger economy that's growing, and that's good for everybody because it's a bigger pie that can be shared.
Let's flip it now.
Mm-hmm.
What would the economy look like if antitrust laws worked absolutely perfectly?
Joe, that's a great question. I mean, we've never seen that happen. We've never come close to seeing it happen. So we don't really know what perfection would be. What I would look for, I think you want to know it by its fruits. Do you get good, fair pricing where there's not a big gap between the costs and the price? Do you get a range of choice for everybody in the marketplace? Do you have a dynamic economy in which innovation occurs a lot and not only the invention, but the commercialization and the opportunity for new things to come on the market, which, by the way, gives more choice and also is a kicker to everybody that's already in the market. So those are things that you want. Now, in terms of an industry structure, I don't think there's an ideal structure. When you have a very fragmented industry, you don't have a whole lot of incentive for innovation. Prices may be very low, but there's probably not enough incentive for anybody to spend money on R&D. When you have a highly concentrated, monopolistic structure, there's going to be some innovation, but it's going to be channeled into the established base. It's going to be channeled in such a way that it isn't going to undermine the monopolists. So probably overall, if you wanted to design a structure, you would want a variety of companies of different sizes operating on different strategies, finding their own way to the marketplace with their own ideas, and I think you'd get the most innovation. You'd probably also be getting the other things we want. There's no ideal. This is a moving target, and there are situations where antitrust isn't going to be the solution. Antitrust is not the solution to what I see as the Google problem, for instance. You may need something like a form of industrial policy where other governmental levers are being manipulated in a coordinated way to assure that there's going to be an adequate level of competition. Because antitrust can't do everything, and we shouldn't oversell it. It's important. It's much more important than it gets credit for. But it's not the be-all and the end-all in trying to make an economy work for the public.